I love cars. Cars are the best. I'd rather take a swift kick to the nuts right now. And in all seriousness, yeah, this is just part of it. So let's just take a look at this. So at first I'm like, damn, did this, doing all this down here, right? Did I mess something up? Did I forget something? Did I miss something? But it ran last night and it was fine. So I logged it all. Fuel pressure seemed fine on the prime pulse, just looking on the screen. Wasn't looking at this. I did have a wideband DTC error, but that went away after I cleared it. Now, after I look at this though, sorry, so you can see here, so look at fuel pressure here. Again, this is where it's trying to start up. Again, if we go here, and if you watch me as I go across, you'll see the engine RPM, so we can watch the engine RPM start, but look at the fuel pressure. There is none. Like, there's no fucking fuel pressure in it. There's no fucking fuel pressure. So this is useless as tits in a boar hog. So I came back here, and I'm like, okay, started taking this off. I was like, what's looking here? And I'm like, uh-oh, spaghetti-o. We got a problem. This didn't pop. It should have. See that there? It just got hot because, again, it's 30 amp. I should really replace that with a 25 amp because I think that's the max. So it's just slightly over, but that didn't pop on me. So I actually want to pull this off too because I want to check the wires, see how bad these are. Now, all this wiring and stuff for this is oversized. It's all 10 gauge, which is way above what it needs to be. Actually, this was built specifically for this reason. Now, this is why I want to get away from running a 525 primary pump, and I want to get this car set up for triple pump. The reason I want triple pump is I want to run a single 450 and then a 525. 2 secondary 525s, or even a small like 3 something, because it takes a lot less draw. It's just a lot easier on the system across the board. It's just way easier. So it's not, I don't need a 525 pump primary. I just need them secondary, and that'll be way more than enough, and just have a small 3 or even like a 2. Like, I just need it to literally crank up the car, get it moving, and once it hits 0, both the other pumps kick on. So it doesn't matter once it sees 0 boost or whatever, so which would be the 1-to-1. So in this case, 60 psi is my base. So I want to pull this off though and take a look, but yeah, that is definitely a problem. And just see if it starts up now. I just changed the pumps around and that's it. And I got it logging too, so let's see if that was the issue. Nope, still doesn't want to run. Try it again here. Maybe it's the regulators failing. Nope, I even switched the pumps and it still doesn't want to do shite. All right, so I came back here again and I went ahead and replaced the fuse in there. So it was this fuse here, but I swapped the relay. The one relay is now junk. Swapped it, turned on, and I was triggering it directly from the computer there to trigger them on and off, and the one relay had fried. And what I'm thinking is, it was on the number 1. I think that 525 pump is just finally shit the bed. It's 5 years old, to let sit, everything else. So I am going to take the tank apart here. I think I'm going to de-pin these and label this so it know it's 100% which one's 1, which one's 2. Now on this side it tells you, but I like knowing on the back side also, like these are pushing out. Thought about switching these over to DTP connectors, but again, I don't know. Again, I like this setup, but I have a Nexus in this, and I have 2 spare 25 amp outputs, which I can drive the pumps with those. I was going to do 10 gauge wire, but I gotta run from there the whole way back here. And there is such thing as amp drop or voltage drop the longer the distance is. So I was gonna use Tefsel wire, 10 gauge, and run it right up there, right along there, and directly in. I don't even think I was gonna loop it down. I was actually gonna put a hole in this with a grommet and run it directly in. I don't wanna cut up the factory car, that I don't mind. But put a hole in a grommet in that, instead of trying to run it down this hole here, because again, that adds more length, trying to loop up, then come up here, versus again, it doesn't need to run up through there. But make it a little bit easier to access, because I don't even think any of this wiring does anything anymore. I'm not even sure. I think this went to the factory fuel pumps, which none of that's doing anything anymore, because I disconnected the 3 small wires are these down here, right? Yep, so the other 2 were the trigger for the pump. This is 100% useless now. That is 100% unnecessary to have. I'm not even sure. Yeah, I don't even need that. That's why I want to take this whole car apart, realistically. Besides pretty much the AC system and some of the like random little things, this whole car nowadays can be completely stripped and rewired, because the cars are very basic and half the stuff isn't here. Like, the only thing in here is this light. If there was a whole mechanism here for the windshield wiper, all this stuff, like there's no need, like I don't need both of those. There should be one little boot. That one I can literally cap off on both sides. There's no need for that. You can see there was for the rear squirter 2 in the back. Don't need that. I'd removed all the lines for it. I could completely cap that off. I would love to rewire the car completely and run it 100% off of PDM, like the whole car PDM. The only thing that would be hard, again, would be the AC system and stuff. That might have to get like a more standard modern electrical system back there. And the HVAC is very old school, and there's a billion wires come off it, so that's where it gets a little tricky too. It'd take a bunch of inputs and outputs just to try and run that. And again, that would be overcomplicated for no reason. So there's dumb little things you don't think about, but that is in there. But back to this. So I marked this as number 2, so I remember, because this side tells you 1 and 2, but this side doesn't. And I just wanted to make sure that I knew that, hey, this is number 2 pump is running as number 1 now. And I figured out that once I did that, both pumps still work, but it was just the relay that went bad. But my concern is the number 1 pump just junk? Is it just going so bad? So what I'm going to do here today is also amp clamp these lines and see, you know, what's the draw. So I'm going to amp clamp here and see what the draw is and give that a shot. So yeah, so you guys can see, and hopefully we can see if the pump's bad by seeing how much more draw it has. If the pump's failing, we should see more draw. Again, should, but this should tell us. All right, so next what we're doing here is I'm going to do an amp clamp on this and see what the draw is. So we're going to test it. So I got 2 different connectors. I can disconnect that. We're going to try it with the pump one, the one that I think is failing and is part of the problem. But again, the whole point of having this is the fuse should pop. It's a little annoying that didn't pop the fuse. Again, why I kind of want to get it hooked to the Nexus so I can just tell it like, hey, 25 amps, this thing's cooked, it's done. Kick off. So I really want to run that again, but I got to run it there, up here, and again I want to run it straight in, still going through there, because I could eliminate like 3 feet, and that 3 feet could be my make it or break it. So anyways, yeah, I think I'm going to turn it on here, and you're going to put this hog to DC. What's it on right now? That's AC. Let's put it on AC DC. So let's crank this hog on, see if she runs. All right, let's prime the pump again. He breaks up because I don't trust this thing. There, so let's see. See what it is. Yeah, 18 in idle there. It's gonna drop down some though as the car warms up a little bit. All right, so we got 18. There, it's kind of bouncing around, it's kind of going up. All right, let's try the other pump now. So you can literally hear the turbo spin. Listen, you hear that? That's, man, ball bearing is life. So now what we're gonna do is disconnect that there, and I'm going to set up the camera so you guys can see this. But this is where it's nice, where you just have the connectors here. So I originally had 4 wires going into 1 connector, but this is where it's nice. So if you're out in the road, I can just take these 10 millimeters, or I could even swap it over here, but we can just do this now. Boom, boom, put this one here. Don't even need to plug this one because I don't need to test that. So let's do that now. And let's see what the amp difference is. Again, if 1 amp, 2 amp, half an amp, I mean, any difference is a difference. So I'm actually gonna leave the camera back here so we can even see startup with it, as long as the camera sits nicely. I just don't want it to fall is my real problem. So, as long as you guys can see it is the real thing. So, let's get this thing to fire up. Does not want to run for shit. Much difference. It's a difference, but nothing crazy. I mean, there's a difference. So I'm watching it there, I want to record it. All right, how's it warming up now? Starting to be a little bit more normal. Watching that's going to change with the fuel. You can see it there jumping around. So running about 18. A lot of moisture in that sucker. Come over here, and I got about 14.1 volts. Yeah, about 14.1. Sitting there idling right now. It's down to 14.0. 14.1. It's okay. Yeah, I think normal is like 13.5, so this is a little bit higher than normal for this, I guess, how this alternator is. So cool. That makes me happy. Idling around 1,000 RPM. You can see there. This is way more accurate than this is even too. Sweet. So like we saw there, it looks like talking to a couple guys, and it might just be the contact size. Now, Jose's done this for a long time, but again, he's told me now he doesn't like the Hellcat pumps, but obviously they can work. They just take a bunch of amperage, which is drawing. The system is drawing everything. So I can see the good and bad with it. But everyone I'm talking to says, you know, use the larger contact, like a standard size fuse, and then a standard size, relay. Even though it's a 50 amp relay, the contacts are so small, it's just, we're seeing such high amperage for such a long time, it's just burning it up instead of popping the fuse. Anything else, it's just apparently not working right. Being honest, I'm still not sure. Again, this is the second time this has happened now. Now this is the new one. The old one was the small setup, which I have in her car, which has been no problem because I have twin 340 pumps in that Walbro, and they're tiny. I think max on those is only 15 amps, like peak, like at a 90 PSI or whatever, and I run 43.5 PSI base pressure, only run 20 PSI through it. So it's only seeing what? It's 65 PSI at most, you know. It's just not seeing any massive pressure, so that, I mean, it's probably only seeing 10 amps at most, so it doesn't matter. Where this, on the other hand, idling, seeing 18, and then when it peaks out, the 525s are known to really peak and go high. That's why it has 10 gauge wiring on it to be safe, even though this stuff here, I believe, is only 12. I could be wrong. Should be able to see, there's numbers on it there, but I can't tell the writing. I can't tell what that is. Doesn't say. So I'm just curious. I think that's 12 gauge because the stuff inside the actual pumps themselves only use 14 gauge, and I think Powerhouse Racing had upgraded either 12 or it might be 10 gauge Tefsel here because they had issues with, again, people running 525s and something like this happening. So they upgraded the wiring, and now from there, the whole way out, you can see how thick it is there. That's actually 10 gauge wiring. So it's just the fuse and relay. And again, I'm literally, this isn't the prettiest. I should do like a fuse relay block or whatever, just run a line over to it, but I put it directly there, so there's no in between. It's going right to the battery. You can't get a better ground than that. And it's still not happy. So that's why I decided to go ahead and flip this car over. Again, I've been working on this anyways. It was just funny. I wanted to go take it for a drive. I literally turned it on the night before, it didn't run, and that's what it was. Super weird how stuff like that can happen. Now, this car. Oh my God, I'm sweating like a hog out here. It is so humid out in this garage today. Just decided to change the oil in this. I've been using Mobil 1, but I decided, like, all right, we're going to stop doing that, using cheap oil, especially because I'm running 85 on it 90% of the time. It needs more zinc. So I bought a bunch of Brad Penn. I've been getting it by the box, which I just threw the rest away, but you can see the box back there. 10W40 for this car, or sorry, 10W40 for that. I use 10W30 in this. I might just use 10W40 in both just because it's not going to hurt anything. It slows down the rotational mass, but it'll give a little bit more strength, or I guess, protection over the long haul. So that's how I look at it, at least. And I only have to buy one type of oil. I don't have to think about which is which anymore. 6 quarts in that. And I did my towel trick. So I get these old janky towels that we either have at the house here or I go up to the dollar store and get it. Fold it up like 4 times. I don't even think I need to do that. Well, yeah, it looks like I do because it just barely peeked through there, but doesn't get to the bottom. And what I do is I put that underneath the the oil filter down here, shove it up under, so when I take the filter off, whatever drips down, drips onto that towel. Pull the old filter out, snake it up, because I got all this room here, snake it up, put it over there, put the new one on, spin it on, clean off the filter and stuff, and then I pull the towel out, and there's not a drop on the undercarriage this way. It's the best way to do it. Keeps things simple, and all you gotta do is spend an extra 50 cents to $1 for a crappy towel every time you change your oil. All right, guys, so I kind of mentioned it there, and I don't know what happened, how it happened, but the relay's working now. Again, I tested everything, took it out, showed it, switched it in the same spot, changed the fuses, would not work. No matter what, I put that one relay in either spot, no matter how I kicked it on from the ECU or keying it on from the car here, it would not work. And now it is. Don't know why, but I'm just going to show you this, but then I'm going to explain what I'm going to do next here. So it is a faulted ground setup. So there's constant 12 volt power back there. And it just follows the ground. So it's a low side activated. So if I put the high side on, which turns on the 12 volt, you'll hear. So this is pump number 1. Can you hear that? Pump's running, right? Okay, that's the fuse or the relay that was junk. It had a bad fuse and a junk relay. Okay, so let's kick on pump number 2. That works. So both are working now. Don't know why, don't know how, but both are working. Now, that being said, I was glad I recorded this so I could see the inrush. I'm gonna actually end up trying to power these pumps off of the Nexus. So I've got 2 outputs left on my Nexus here that are 25 amp, and I'm gonna run wiring the whole way through here, up and over. I'm hoping that it is enough. Again, I'm gonna use Tefsel 10 gauge wire for this and set it all up. So I took everything out. Look at this one pin, look at that. So we definitely had some heavy resistance, Ohm's law here. You know, it's pulling at it, it's creating heat because there wasn't a good enough ground somewhere, which is crazy. Is I had this grounded directly to the battery. Didn't even use like a lug area where I do it all, because I talked about doing that. And now in my head, I'm like, why add another place of failure? This goes directly to the place it grounds at, and that's it, like it's done. But yeah, like even the one crimp came off, like it had some serious heat. And then the one here, where's that? Look at this. It literally melted and was like, this is like flaked to pieces. You can see here how hot it got in the backside. Look at that. Just went to pieces. And again, this is 10 gauge wire to this. So I'm excited to use the Nexus. I know it's longer. Tefsel's supposed to do better. Number 2, I'll be able to monitor it. So I mean, it's a true. I won't be like, why did it happen? What's going on? I'll be able to see the spikes. I'll be able to see everything. Again, talking to Nick over at Haltech, he explained all this to me. We went over everything in detail. I went ahead and actually got the laptop on the car, set everything up, transferred everything over. So I got my 2 high current set up. So only thing I need to do now is legitimately put the wiring in and then key the car on and see if it all works. I ordered, like I said, I got all the wiring stuff, and I'm going to modify this. I ordered a DTP connector. That's a 4-wire connector that is actually designed for a pass-through. It has like bolt-on design. I'm gonna have to melt the side tabs to try and get it on here to sit a little flush, and then bolt it onto it. I like that idea because, again, I don't have to run the wires wholly down, up, and over. I'm gonna run straight here and in. So I'm gonna put the connector right here, it runs directly in, boom, instead of coming down there, trying to fish it up. It's always been a pain in the butt, and again, I'm gonna put it so the connector's on this side, I can pull it off, and then this has a connector on it already. So you can see that here. This already has a connector on it. It uses a mil-spec connector. Oops, get that off there. Uses a mil-spec connector here. It's one thing I need to ask for. I don't have the collet for it. That car does. I don't know what happened. I must have lost it. I need to ask Sam for one of those. My stupidity. It's not his fault, but that, again, you know, you can see how hard it is to get off. But if I can get that collet back on to keep that cinched, and then if I need to remove the wiring, I can just pull it out of there, and then I'll have a connector here. So there'll be a connector here, and then one pass through this to connect the main loop there. And the reason I like that idea is just for the fact of running it down through and coming up, just keeps it as short as possible. It keeps it as simplistic as possible in my eyes. But look how much less stuff is here now. I just zip tied that off. Again, I kept this running through. I was going to run that through it also, but I'm like, this is tiny. I mean, especially now, look how small that is versus the big crap I had before. So I ran it down through there. I bought these off Amazon. They're like rubber grommets. I put a new rubber grommet there, just poked a tiny hole to run the wiring through to make sure we keep all that fuel smell out, and then zip tied it here so it's not banging around. And I'm probably going to put a connector here or something to have that, the thing from the factory, it actually sat against here like that. But I don't have it anymore. And I think this should be fine because it wasn't held in before. And then I'm going to make some brackets because I want to get rid of the zip tie, make some brackets off these bolts here to hold this line, and then I'm going to make something into here because these studs aren't long enough to hold the line again, because I don't like this smacking around like this, being loose. Can't have that. So I'll make a bracket built into this that holds it like here, so the only thing hanging out is just that little bit. So I'll bracket, and then I'll probably have to do something for this too. Don't like that. Make a bracket right here even. I can tilt this up so I can get enough length and just be a straight run across, and that'll be it. I'm pumped, man. I'm getting excited for this. Stuff like this is just cool. And again, talking to Nick, he really invokes confidence. I swear to God, Haltech needs to pay him more because he's their best hype man. He's their best technician, tuner. He's just a good dude all around, and just nice to you to talk to. Just a good person. I always say this. I'm always fortunate. My buddy Alex at over Absolute Driven Performance, he's always super helpful too. I'm just, again, lucky all around. Anyways, I might have to get a new one of these though, because stretching the wires from here to here, I've cut this and modified it over the years. I might not have enough. We'll see. I'm going to try it first. It might just be really tight for now until I can get something, or just, again, ask for something from Sam to get that to work perfectly. So a couple things here. I'm going to wrap this up. Can't use this crimper. It doesn't go large enough to fit these large solid contacts you can see here. So I am going to use a 4-pin connector instead of a 2-pin. I was going to use dual 2-pins, but what I'm going to use is a through connector now. I've heard of these, I've seen them before, and I was like, this is a perfect snare for it. So I'm going to use one of these 4-pin connectors and just conjoin all the wires. and I made a little hole here. So this will come through like that. The other side, it's this one here. I already made it so it fits this side, the male side of it here, because that'll come through here. And the wires will run directly into it. And on this side will be the connector. So I can disconnect it from here, pull the lid off, and then since this has a connector here, this will all pop out. Makes it super simple that way. Yeah, and like I said, the wiring for this is already done. I'm gonna keep this down below just because that looks a little bit cleaner in my opinion. But yeah, that's it. Like this is, yeah, I've already got the pump set up. You set both the pumps as 25 amp high current output, and then you set the states to high, and then I did the inrush set to 25 also. I might have to change that. I don't think the inrush is gonna be that bad, but I have it set to 25 amps, you know, to kick the fuse off. And by talking to Nick, he said it will go higher than that, but it should be fine. So this is it, guys. Let's see how this works out. I'm excited to have the pumps ran off that again. It won't be like this old school relay setup. It'll work directly up there. So you have 2 wires come up and then 2 wires directly to the battery for ground. And that's it. No trigger wires, no nothing. It really cleans things up and it makes it a lot simpler. I guess this is the whole point of having a PDM, is to simplify things. Why not, you know, why make your life harder than it has to be? So thank you very much, guys. If there's anything for today, please let me know. Thank you again to Raceworks. They're the ones supplying all the fittings for today. They're supplying all the parts you've seen here lately, TI Performance and Raceworks. Check them out down below. I want to thank my buddy Nick and my buddy Steve for helping me out with this. Just trying to diagnose things to see what it could possibly be before you made this change. Unfortunately, I just think something had to have come loose. You know, something caused resistance. I don't know where. Again, everything was confined to back here, so it made it as super simple as possible. The only thing that ran up front was a trigger wire, so everything was in this small area. I don't know, but it is what it is. We're gonna move on. I'm not gonna dwell on it. We'll be able to monitor it from here on out and see if we have any problems. Thank you guys very much for tuning in today, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.